Today we are talking to this year's All-State Concert Band and Wind Ensemble Conductors on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to PMEA's Take Note podcast. I'm Mark Despotakis, and this is another podcast in our series where we are previewing the 2023 All-State Festival. And in this one, we're going to be talking to two of the guest conductors who will be at the All-State Festival. So it is my pleasure to bring in Dr. David Romines, who will be conducting the All-State Concert Band as our guest conductor. David, thanks for joining us.
I'm very excited to be here. Thank you, Mark, for allowing this opportunity to speak to the students ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to find a little bit out about you. And I'm sure that this is going to help everybody there on, as I say, when you know a little bit more going in on that first downbeat after hearing about you. So give us a little bit of your quick bio so folks know who you are.
Okay. Well, I've done a lot of things. And had a lot of activity. Some people might say I've had a long and exciting career. Other people might say it's more like Forrest Gump. But I was originally from Tennessee, Knoxville. I grew up in that area, attended the University of Tennessee. And for 16 years, I was a high school band director in Tennessee. And eventually ended up getting my doctorate in instrumental conducting and conducting pedagogy at the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg. Shortly thereafter, I was appointed the Associate Director of Bands and the Director of the University of Georgia Redcoat Marching Band, and stayed at UGA until 2008. Did some work for the United States-China Cultural and Educational Foundation, and then ended up at Marywood University in Scranton, Pennsylvania, where I am the co-chair of the Music Theater and Dance Department and director of bands. And I conduct the Wind Ensemble and the Wind Symphony and teach all of the wind methods courses for music education majors. I've appeared as a guest conductor in 34 states and have conducted every conceivable type of ensemble, from military bands, professional ensembles, all-state, region, district, every kind of honor program you could imagine. I've worked with them, so I've had a lot of experience in putting together a program very quickly with talented students, and I'm very excited to be able to work with a large number of students in my home state here of Pennsylvania now.
I love it. I mean, I love hearing kind of the resume there, where you the things that you've done. You know, makes me think there's another podcast in here where we just kind of dive into some of those at some point.
Okay.
It sounds fascinating. So let's talk about the musical program. Talk to us a little bit about the program you've selected for the 2023 All-State Concert Band.
Well, I could go into really deep detail, but I don't think that's what we want here. I'll just give you kind of a thumbnail of what we're doing. We're doing the first movement of Symphony Number 3, that is subtitled Slavinskaya, by Boris Kochesnikov. It's arranged by John Bourgeois. It's in a line of Russian symphonies that could probably trace its influences back to Dvorak and others, but Kochesnikov was a very prolific writer for Soviet bands, and was a faculty member at the Moscow Conservatory of Music. And although there's varying stories, the music ended up with Colonel Bourgeois, who was the former conductor of the United States Marine Band, and he edited it, and it became very popular with university bands in the mid-90s. Although the piece was written in 1950, it was not played in the United States until the middle 90s. It's technically very challenging, but it also has some, the first movement has some very beautiful um, um, and expressive kind of romantic postures. But we're looking forward to that. It's going to be, I think it's going to be the piece that we'll open our program with. Another piece on our program is California for Wind Ensemble by David Maslanka. This is a piece that utilizes the total instrumental forces available to the wind symphonies in brilliant ways. And there's conflicting moods followed by periods of satisfying resolution. There's protracted developments that happen during the course of the work. One particular thing that of interest is Maslanka in this piece treats the percussion and the winds as separate units, but on equal footing. We could not begin to play this piece without the full complement of percussion instruments and vice versa. So really looking forward to that. The band will have to display a lot of confidence and patience throughout the piece because a lot of the expressive points are delayed, and you must make sure that you don't crescendo too early or that you don't arrive too soon. Another piece that we're doing is the Eine kleine Yiddish rag music by Adam Gorb. This piece is a kind of a throwback to a style that you might have found in Berlin in the 1930s. It's very jaunty and very dance-like, kind of like a Scott Joplin rag. And this Scott Joplin feel for syncopation is then combined with Jewish folk songs. It's called the klezmer style, and it's very, very fun to play. And the reason we're doing it is because there are so many solos in it. And I want as many people in the All-State Band to have an opportunity to play a solo. So that's going to be a good moment on our program, I do believe. We're also doing a traditional march by Claudio Grafula. It's arranged by Loris Sichel. I love to program music that has some sort of historical component that is significant, and this march fits. It's also a very unique march with regard to form. It doesn't have an introduction. It doesn't have a trio. It doesn't have a stinger at the end. It just starts with flowing melodies in German and Italian style and keeps them going. There's some of the most delicate, sweetest sections, sweet sections in the piece, followed by very heavy, bombastic, and aggressive style. So we're going to work on that. I've been working with some of my colleagues around the country to make sure that we do this march in a historically correct format. I will say this, the march did start out as a brass band piece and then was later arranged for concert band over 100 years ago. So there are some things that we may make adjustments to depending on how authentic we want things to be during the course of the march. But that's Washington Gray's. Also, Horkstow Grange is the slow movement, the second movement from the band masterwork Lincolnshire Posy by Percy Granger. There's a lot to say about this little ballad. It's so emotionally charged. And it's got, I mentioned to you earlier, I think that I wanted to expose the band to a diversity of musical emotions. And this piece does that very, very well. One thing that is unique about this movement from Lincolnshire is the balance of conflicting emotions of hope and despair, and does it better than any other work, I believe, in the band literature. So that's an overview of the pieces that we're doing on the performance. I will say this is the type of program that keeps everyone playing and keeps everyone on the edge of their seat, ready to fulfill their musical responsibilities one after another. So I hope that the students will be well prepared and ready to get busy right from the first moment of the first rehearsal.
Yeah, I just love the variety that you've programmed. It's going to be a great concert, and I'm sure a wonderful experience for the students. So, thinking about the students as you're programming this, and as you're thinking of what's going to happen during your rehearsals, what is your hope for what the students will get out of being in this concert band ensemble?
Well, I want the principal players in the band and I want the players in the section to each feel that they've directly contributed toward building an emotionally charged musical landscape. They know how their part contributes to that, and then feel that I call it kind of a power exchange of creating live music and these living sonic or sound episodes with a live audience. That's very important to me. And I want everyone in the ensemble to understand exactly the subtleties that go into creating powerful music. And the fact that, you know, if someone plays out of style, then the piece is out of style. There has to be a high level of proficiency from every chair. And I've been doing this a long time, and you can tell when you're on the podium the amount of energy that comes from every seat in the ensemble. Some people may be giving as much as they can, and other people are looking out in the audience to see who's walking around. I really want us to all have a very, very strong commitment toward making the best music we possibly can.
So let's talk a little about, what is it like for you then coming and doing an ensemble like this? I mean, there's a lot of work that you've done in this pre-planning, and what will the pieces be, and what your thought process is. But what is this like for you to come in, for a couple days and kind of drop in with this ensemble that has never been seated together and make music together?
Well, I'm not hesitant to share this with everyone. I'll be nervous. I'm always nervous in the fall when the collegiate band gets together for the first time. But that nervous energy, I think, is a good thing. I also want to make sure that the students have worked extremely hard to get here to this position. And I want them to feel like the effort was worthy. Their parents are proud of them, their directors are proud of them, and they should be proud of what they've accomplished. When they get older, they're going to find themselves saying again and again, yeah, I was a member of the Pennsylvania All-State Concert Band. And they're going to carry that. They're going to carry that pride with them. They're going to find out very soon that I'm one of the biggest band nerds on the planet. I love to have a good time. Sometimes I have to restrain myself to make sure that we're getting the work done. I like to rehearse in an intense manner, but I also like to have lighter moments. And I want to get to know the students as quickly as possible. Sometimes there's a little bit of uncertainty in the first few minutes. They're getting to know me, I'm getting to know them, but that quickly washes away because we're all champions for music. We want that music to sound really, really good. And I'm going to do my best to lead them toward that goal.
All right, so you kind of teased us a little bit here and telling us a little about yourself and kind of your expectations, but we know we have a lot of students watching this. So, what would be the one thing that you would want students to know about you before that first downbeat of that first rehearsal happens?
Well, I was a member of the All-State Band for three years during high school. And I can still remember things that the conductor said. I can especially remember an All-State that we had in Memphis, Tennessee, with Colonel Arnold Gabriel. And I was so enthralled by his commitment and by his musicality was just flowing. And we were working on things with that ensemble that I had never considered as a band member. and it really did help shape me. I hope I can provide some things for students, because many of the students who get to that level will play those instruments for the rest of their lives, maybe as a music major, maybe in a community band or some other way. And I just want to give them some things that they can carry with them and maybe take back home and use with their bands back home, because it's all about perspective. Anytime you work with new individuals or in a new setting, there's always chances to learn something that you haven't really thought of before, or thought of in a particular way. So I'm going to bring the same type of determination to these rehearsals and to your success that I did when I was in the All-State Band, like you guys.
That's awesome. I love you taking your perspective and putting it on those who are going to be in the seats in front of you. So we are looking forward to seeing you in the Poconos. We are looking forward to what the All-State Concert Band will be doing. So Dr. David Romines, thanks for taking some time to talk to us.
It was a pleasure, Mark. I want to let all of the members that are going to be in the band that eventually end up in the concert band, you can reach out to me anytime. I would really love to hear from you, and I hope that I'll get to know many of you very, very well during the course of our preparations for the concert. Thanks again, Mark.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we'll see you really pretty soon here in the Poconos. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Indeed. Thank you.
Well, with us now is Dr. Patricia Cornett, who will be our guest conductor for the All-State Wind Ensemble. Trish, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
So we're really excited to have you join us in the Poconos. And I know we have a lot of students watching this. So I want to start by giving them a chance to get to know you. And for all of our listeners and viewers to get to know you, kind of give us your background and your brief bio.
Sure. Well, right now I am the director of bands at Temple University, and that means that I sort of oversee the entire band program. Doesn't mean that I conduct every single band at Temple, but I sort of oversee the entire program, including our marching band, which I'm a big fan of. And I also teach conducting here. I teach an advanced undergraduate conducting course, and I have a graduate conducting studio. So that's my job here.
Okay, fantastic. And for people who regularly tune into the podcast, they know that we do a lot of marching band episodes, and I'm big into marching band. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was just talking to someone the other day about marching bands in Pennsylvania at the collegiate level. And I said one of the most underrated ones is Temple, that it is a phenomenal marching band.
Yeah, I mean, they are just so fun. I mean, they do these great like pop music shows that are perfect for our football watching audience. If anyone out there has done, competitive marching band in high school and they're like, maybe I don't want to do that anymore in college. You wouldn't do that at Temple. They learn a new show for every home game. So everything has to be a little, it has to be learnable in that amount of time. But we've done, I don't really know much about pop music, but all I know about pop music, I learned from the Temple Marching Band. They've done so much like Lizzo, Ariana Grande, Dua Lipa, Panic at the Disco, Imagine Dragons, like all that stuff they do. And it's just so much fun.
Yeah, and they do it well. So
they really do.
Yeah. Yes. That they have my vote as the most underrated that we should talk about more. So maybe we'll expose more about them on a future podcast. But let's get back to talking about the All-State Festival. So let's talk about the musical selections. Kind of what are the highlights? What do you have planned for the Wind Ensemble?
Well, the big piece that we're going to do, kind of like the big project piece, if you will, is a piece by composer Erica Svano, and it's called Steampunk Suite. And I mean, the title right there should kind of pique your interest. This piece is so fun and interesting, and has a whole bunch of musical challenges in it, but it's also really, really fun to play, fun for listeners, and I think everyone is going to really enjoy that. It's going to be a lot of work. There's a lot of notes in that piece that we're gonna have to play, but it's going to be really fun for everybody. And then I tried to balance that out with some other pieces that are a little bit older. Like, for example, we're starting with the Overture to Candide, which, while it's technically an orchestra piece, that transcription by Claire Grunman has been done it's been around for a long time, and it's been done so often that it really, in its own right, has kind of become a band standard. And that has its own musical and technical challenges for sure. And then we're going to follow that up with a newer piece by composer Aaron Perrine called Only Light. And that's, what I would call the slow pretty, right? Like that's the slower, more lyrical piece. But unlike a lot of slower lyrical pieces, it has a ton for percussion to do. There's some interesting homemade percussion instruments, and there's some crystal water glasses, and there's a lot of really interesting colors that the composer gets from that. And then from there, we're going to go to a piece by a composer named Paul Dooley, who is a friend of mine, former colleague at the University of Michigan. And this piece is called The Spell Book. And this one will be new to me, but I think it will be a really kind of, it sort of doesn't fit neatly into any category. So I think it'll be really fun for us to explore that one. And then we'll end with the Steampunk Suite.
I love it. I love the variety, of course, and I love doing the Candide because, as you said, that's like the standard. I did that at a PMEA festival many years ago. So, yeah, that's one of the things that I'm so glad you're exposing the students to. So let's talk about the students a little bit. As you go into this, what are you hoping that they'll get out of being in the All-State Wind Ensemble?
Well, I hope that they get a better at their instruments on a personal level, right? I hope that there are some challenges in the music that demand that they sort of approach their instrument in a different way. But even more than that, I hope that they become even better listeners through this experience. I mean, one of the things about honor bands like this is that the students they haven't played together before this weekend. Even if a bunch of students from their school are there, or if they've been in All-State for a number of years, they've never played with these specific students in this particular configuration before. So it's really important that we are able to build an ensemble sound and an ensemble feel right away. I mean, that has to happen really quickly. We don't have a lot of time to do that. So one of the things that I really try to emphasize when I'm working with students in this kind of a setting is you have to listen, right? We have to listen. Who are you listening for? What are you hearing? I mean, I do a lot of warming up and kind of building that ensemble, but I also take myself out of the equation often because I want them to not just watch, but I want them to listen. And so that's something that's really important to me. And that's something that I hope they get from the experience and then can bring back to their home band and kind of bring that experience and help improve their own band at home.
Yeah, really appreciate that perspective of, take something away from this to strengthen your program. So I'm always really curious when talking to conductors like who come in to do these type of ensembles, like what is in your head? Because this is really a challenge, okay? You've done a lot of work already. You've picked the program, you've thought through that, but you're picking a program for, students you don't know, an ensemble you don't know. You can, I guess kind of throw some darts at the wall to know the quality of them, but you really don't know what that ensemble is. What is it like for you as a conductor doing this and then just, dropping in for those few days to have this magnificent ensemble?
Well, I think one of the first things you asked is what's going through your head, and really what's going through my head is, boy, I hope I picked the right music because that is a big part of these things being successful. And, one of the things that I always ask for when I'm invited to do something like this is that I want to see the music that's been done over the last few years. And luckily, I'm in a very small and very collegial profession, meaning I know a lot of, I can look at a list of what's been done over the last few years, and it's a pretty darn good chance I'm going to know a few of those conductors as well. So I might call them or send them an email and say, hey, I see you did this program. How did that work for you? Was there anything that was too easy or too hard? And I might try to get their perspective on it, which has always been really helpful. And I know people have contacted me and said, hey, I saw you did this group last year. Tell me about it. So really, it really comes down to picking the right music for the ensemble that you've got. And that's, at the end of the day, it is an educated guess, but I try to have educated myself as much as possible because I think, you want it has to be in the sweet spot. It can't be too hard because then you're just chasing notes and everything feels bad and uncomfortable, but it can't be too easy because you do have a long time to rehearse and you don't want to be done at the end of day one. And then, well, what do you want to do now? You want to have story time, right? So you have to really kind of get that sweet spot. So I think it really does come down to having done my homework and hopefully pick the right fit of music for these students.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's a cool perspective. Much appreciated to hear that. So, all right, I know we have a lot of students watching this who, might be nervous to come. This is their first, or they've come back. No matter what, it's a whole new experience because it's a whole new ensemble and with a whole new conductor that they've not met. So, for the students out there, what is the one thing that you would want them to know about you before that first downbeat in the Poconos?
That I'm really scary and I might yell at them a lot. No, I'm completely kidding. I guess what they should know is that I'm probably just as excited to be there as they are. I come into this with a lot of energy, and I would just encourage them to kind of try to meet me there. And, we're going to kind of feed off of each other, and we're going to move really fast. And this is meant to be a positive experience for them. So I guess what they should know is that I'm just as excited to be there as they are.
Well, we are incredibly excited to have you join us in the Poconos, and so thankful that you will be doing it. So, Trish, thanks for joining us to talk a little bit today, and we will see you here in just a few short weeks.
Yes,
in the
coming up
Poconos.
quickly.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks.
And thank you all for joining us on this edition of PMEA's Take Note podcast. Join us next month when we will be talking to 2 more All-State conductors. And we want to thank our sponsor, the Grove City College Department of Music. We'll see you next time.